Nutrition is made up of a lot of moving parts and all of them matter, but when you're trying to lose fat, build muscle, or improve your health, it helps to prioritize those parts in the right order. That's why I created a system called the Nutrition Engine. In this video, we're zooming in on the first cog, calories. Calories are the starting point because until you know how many calories you're working with, you can't intelligently set the other cogs in motion. For example, you might decide you need 200 grams of protein, but if your calorie target is too low, that protein target simply isn't realistic. A calorie is simply a unit of energy. In nutrition, that energy is usually measured in kilocalories, often written as kcal, but on food labels and in everyday language, we just call them calories. Your body uses this energy to carry out all of its functions. The first way to estimate your calorie needs is by using a calculator. Most calorie calculators are built around equations like the one you can see on screen, which estimate your basal metabolic rate, essentially how many calories your body would burn at rest. I've shown the formula here not because you need to calculate it yourself, but to highlight the key factors that influence calorie needs: your body weight, height, age, and activity level. You'll also notice the formula slightly differs between men and women, which simply accounts for average differences in body composition. Once we have that baseline, we multiply it by an activity factor to estimate maintenance calories, often called your total daily energy expenditure, or TDEE. The second method, and generally the most accurate for most people, is tracking. Instead of relying on formulas, you track your calorie intake for 1 to 2 weeks, while also tracking your body weight. When you do this, weigh yourself daily under the same conditions, ideally in the morning in the same clothing, so you're looking at trends, not day-to-day fluctuations. If your weight stays roughly the same over that period, then your average intake is your maintenance calories. If your weight is trending up or down, that tells you you're in a surplus or a deficit. As a general rule of thumb, a change of around half a kilo per week usually reflects roughly a 500 calorie difference from maintenance, either above or below. This method accounts for your lifestyle, your activity levels, and your metabolism, not an average person's. Before we talk about diet goals like bulking, cutting, or maintenance, which determine your calorie target, there's one important thing to understand. Calorie targets aren't fixed numbers. One reason people struggle with calories is that we treat the number as exact, when in reality it's dynamic. Daily energy expenditure fluctuates based on factors like activity levels, stress, sleep, and digestion. Because of this, judging progress based on a single day of intake or daily weigh-in doesn't make much sense. What matters are trends over time, usually weekly averages. That's also why consistency matters more than day-to-day precision. You don't need to hit the exact same number every day. You need to be roughly consistent in the right direction. However, having said this, as goals become more specific, precision becomes more important. With that in mind, let's look at one of three strategies: bulking. Bulking simply means eating above your maintenance calories, so you're in a calorie surplus. That surplus can either be used to build muscle or stored as body fat. It's important to note that muscle gain is slow, and there's a limit to how much muscle you can build each month, no matter how much food you eat. Because of that limit, we don't want to be overly aggressive with a bulk, otherwise weight gain becomes uncontrolled and a larger proportion of it comes from fat rather than muscle. Instead, we want a lean bulk, allowing body weight to increase gradually alongside improvements in the gym, so more of the weight you gain comes from muscle rather than fat. In calorie terms, most lean bulks sit around 100 to 300 calories above maintenance. Once you consistently push beyond that, around 500 calories or more, you're usually just gaining fat faster, not building muscle faster. Next, let's look at cutting. Cutting simply means eating in a calorie deficit, where body weight trends down over time because your body starts using stored energy. That stored energy mainly comes from body fat, and that deficit doesn't have to come through food alone. Increasing activity, like adding cardio, can also help you reach your planned deficit. Roughly speaking, 3,500 calories equals a pound of fat. That's why a daily deficit of around 500 calories per day often leads to about 1 pound of fat loss per week. In practice, a good target for most people is losing around 0.5 to 1% of their body weight per week. That rate tends to balance fat loss with muscle retention, recovery, and training performance. You can lose weight faster by being more aggressive, but the trade-offs increase. Hunger goes up, performance usually drops, and the risk of muscle loss and burnout becomes higher. The third and final calorie strategy is eating at maintenance calories. Maintenance refers to calorie intake and expenditure being roughly balanced, keeping body weight stable over time. Recomposition, sometimes called main-gaining, can happen at maintenance. In this situation, body weight stays stable while you lose fat and build muscle. How effective this approach is depends mainly on your body fat level and your training experience. Because of that, it tends to work best for beginners, returning lifters, or people carrying higher levels of body fat, as in these situations, the body has more stored energy available and muscle growth potential is still relatively high. However, as you get leaner, recomposition becomes slower. As you become more advanced in your training, muscle gain also slows down significantly. So in these situations, dedicated bulking and cutting phases tend to be a more effective way to continue making progress. This slide puts everything we've covered into a single visual spectrum. The spectrum runs from cutting on the left to bulking on the right, with maintenance and recomposition sitting in the middle. The colors work like a traffic light system. Most of the middle is green, meaning these are generally the best default options for most people. In the green zone, you've got three options: a moderate cut on the left, maintenance or recomposition in the middle, and a controlled bulk on the right. On the far left, you'll see an aggressive cut. It's shown in amber because it can work, but it comes with higher costs and needs more caution. However, it's still marked with a tick because it can be appropriate in specific situations, just not as a default. On the far right is an aggressive bulk. This is highlighted in red and marked with an X because for most people it usually leads to faster fat gain rather than faster muscle gain. The main takeaway is that calorie targets should match your goal. For most people, the middle ground works best, and the further you push towards the extremes, the more trade-offs you introduce. That brings us to the end of this video, where we've covered the calorie cog of the nutrition engine in detail. From here, the next step is to look at the second priority in the system, protein. If you want help applying the nutrition engine to your own situation, or you're interested in personalized bodybuilding coaching, you can send me a direct message. I do offer coaching services. If this video helped you, I'd really appreciate a like, a comment, and a subscribe. It helps the video get more exposure. Thanks for watching and good luck building your diet.